we've seen our small business clients really develop tremendous resiliency and adaptability over the past couple of years, which is awesome to see and really important for the state of entrepreneurialism and our economy in Canada.
Join Edwin Frondozo on the Business Leadership Podcast every week for a unique program featuring insights and actionable items from the world's most successful business leaders. Hear firsthand the exclusive interviews and personal journeys on how today's transformational leaders made it to the top.
Welcome to the Business Leadership Podcast. My name is Edwin Frondozo. Welcome. Thank you for joining me. I'm super excited to share this special episode where I had the opportunity to sit down with Don Ludlow. He's the Vice President of Small Business Strategy and Partnerships, and we sit down to discuss the highlights from the RBC Small Business Poll and its findings for the rest of 2022 and beyond. And in our conversation, we discuss how inflation is impacting consumer mindset and spending, how small businesses are able to adapt to these new behaviors and pressures to stay competitive, and what these small businesses can do to remain competitive amid the rising cost pressures and inflation. Without further ado, here we go. Welcome to the Business Leadership Podcast, Don.
Great to be here, Edwin.
Yeah, I'm super excited. But before we jump in, I'd love to get started off by introducing yourself to our listeners today. If you could tell us who you are and what you like to do when you're not growing or leading businesses.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks. And hello, everyone. Well, my name is Don Ludlow. I'm the Vice President of Small Business Strategy and Partnerships at RBC. So what does that mean? My team and I are responsible for our small business segment and our overall business financial services strategy, as well as our managing our external partnerships and our CRM and data capabilities. So a really tremendous set of responsibilities we've got working with a great team, and of course a very outward-looking job, of course, focused on the market and small businesses and helping them succeed. And I've been at RBC for about 20 years. Most of that time was as a commercial banker, helping business owners thrive and achieve their goals, and also leading teams of relationship managers. Prior to that, I actually served for about a decade in the Canadian Army. I had the real privilege of serving our country in uniform, both at home and overseas. And in my spare time, I like to travel and entertain and get outside and enjoy the outdoors with my wife and son. So that's me in a nutshell, and it's tremendous to be here today to talk about all things small business with you, Eddie.
Yeah, Don, thank you, and thank you for your service. Thank you for all your hard work, especially in the small business industry. This is something very close to my heart, being an entrepreneur for 10 years, and I got almost all my friends are either small business owners or they've scaled businesses as well. So I'm really keen to jump into the conversation, especially to discuss the findings from the recent RBC Small Business Poll that you and your team conducted. So I guess to get started, with the rise of inflation, how are you seeing, or how is that impacting consumer mindset and spending?
Yeah, it's really interesting. We conduct these polls pretty regularly, just to keep track of what's on the minds of Canadian consumers as they think about small businesses and small business owners themselves. And I think in this latest survey we did, what really stands out is, in spite of these really challenging and turbulent times in the economy, there's still a bunch of great pandemic support and positive sentiment towards our small businesses. So, Canadians are continuing to show our local small businesses their love in all kinds of different ways. First of all, with their spending on their wallets. So Canadians are spending at least 30% of their discretionary spend at local small businesses. And over 70% of Canadians have shopped locally in the past month or so. And when you think about it, that's not surprising. The pandemic kept many of us very local, and I think we really came to appreciate our local small business owners, got to know them better, got to know their stories, and really came to understand how integral they are to the fabric of our communities. So it's not surprising to see this continued support for small businesses, again, in spite of, pretty challenging times when people are keeping their eyes on what they spend.
Yeah, and that's a big number when you mentioned 30% of Canadian budgets going into small business. And when you see the trends or from polls year over year, is that something that are we seeing rise now?
It's a great question. I don't have the kind of time sequence on that in a sense, so it's hard to know if that's waxing or waning. But I would say it's just a really solid number when you think of all the other demands that people have on their household budgets. So I think that's just a pretty solid number for small businesses. And I think part of the challenge is then, okay, that's great, all that support for small businesses. So how do small business owners really, continue to attract that spend and maintain the attention and support of the people in their communities?
Yeah, and speaking of that, I'm curious and I'm wondering, how are these small businesses able to adapt now to these new behaviors, these changes through COVID, and then the added pressure to stay competitive?
Yeah, I think it's interesting to hear from them and also hear from Canadians what they're looking for and what small business owners are doing to sort of compete and win in this kind of environment. To me, it's focusing on a number of things. So, and these are things that are of value to Canadian consumers. The first is, perhaps not surprisingly, sustainability. So almost 3/4 of Canadians think that that's really important for businesses, and they actually seek out and want to support small businesses that are pursuing sustainable business practices and giving them environmentally friendly options in the products and services they offer. Another aspect of it is what we would call the rise of the socially conscious consumer. So we know that many Canadians, greater than half, want to support communities owned by two-spirited LGBTQ community members and members of the Black, Indigenous, and people of color community. So being aligned with the values and the things that are important socially to consumers is important as well. And of course, with that keen eye to keeping up on consumer trends and always innovating and always adapting. Innovation is a pretty important aspect of that. Not only innovating in your product and service offering, but how you actually organize and conduct your business to stay current and efficient. So all kinds of things I think that small business owners can do to keep up with their local communities and maintain that tremendous community support.
Yeah, and what I'm hearing, and also I could even mention from my own personal spending, especially when I'm looking to share my money or provide my budget, I definitely look at sustainability. I always look at these types like, who could I support? And being a small business owner, I'm always trying to support different communities, especially being, within the community of an Asian community, right? So I'm always looking for these things. And I never used to be like that, Don. So it's interesting that the data that you're coming is like, I'm really like connecting with it. And being in the tech entrepreneurship side, I always think of how do you innovate, and not only innovate in technology, how do we innovate as business leaders or entrepreneurs in terms of telling our stories. So that's really awesome in terms of that. So I guess further to that, Don, like what are these businesses or what can they do to remain competitive amid the rising costs, pressures, and inflation?
I think a bunch of things. Interesting enough that point around innovation and sustainability. Some of those things, not only are those good for the environment, but they're actually great from a business efficiency and economics point of view. So there's often a very good business case around sustainable practices. I think being digitally savvy and embracing digital capabilities, whether that's digital payments or e-commerce in order to reach a broader audience, and deliver a great customer experience, even to your existing customers in the community. And then there's some, I guess business owner practices with the business acumen mindset. Always be, thinking about and examining with a tough eye, your core offerings and understanding how the needs of your customers are changing, because, they will continue to change and evolve in this market. So always ask yourself, what are our customers thinking? What are they buying? What's the latest problem I can solve for them, or what's an opportunity that I can help them with? I think secondly, looking at maybe streamlining your operations. So, keeping things, efficient, and orderly and organized. So to me, that gets into a lot of, digital practices using business solutions that are out there to make sure that you're always running efficient operations and keeping an eye on your cash flow. And then, although I'm a banker, I would say always obviously thinking way beyond banking and finance. There's all kinds of resources and tools out there for small business owners to think about every aspect of their business, whether that's logistics, HR, finance. And we've got all kinds of, tools and resources available at on our RBC Small Business Navigator site that can really help you get started or start thinking about some of these things. So yes, challenging times, a lot of things coming at business owners. There always is. But I think there's lots of things that small business owners can do to adapt and remain resilient in these times.
You mentioned a couple of things, and for those who are listening, we'll definitely put links to RBC Navigator, so you could just scroll down into the podcast episode, listen to that, and we'll definitely provide all the resources that Don's talking about as well. But one thing that you mentioned, Don, was the importance of adopting digital solutions to save time and money and to stay competitive. So I'm really curious, how can small businesses ensure that their digital transformation journey runs smoothly?
Yeah, it's a great thing, and sometimes it's hard to know where to start. But maybe think about it in a couple of different ways, and then I'll give you a tip to dealing with that. So the first is, are you using cloud-based technologies, which really allow you to access programs, data, and services online instead of having them all housed on like the hard drive of your computer. So that's very cost effective. It's very secure. And it also gives you remote access, which is pretty important when you're either away from your business or if things go down. So, that's the first thing. The second thing is, so I'd say that first thing maybe helps you proactively. The second thing is more of a defensive thing, is mitigating the cyber risk. And as our economy and as small businesses become more digitized, that risk from cyber threats becomes very heightened. So, there's all kinds of tools and technologies you can use to mitigate your cyber risk. We work with a great partner called Cobalt that helps small businesses manage that risk, and then obviously help them if they ever have some kind of an incident. But managing cyber risk, sure protects you on the downside. And then finally, we have a great program or set of services and tools in RBC Go Digital, it's called. And regardless of where you are in your journey, if you're just starting or trying to broaden your understanding and capabilities, it's a great place to go to get tools, resources, access the partners we've got, and just generally learn more about how to embrace digital and position yourself for the future.
Perfect. No, thank you. And it sounds like you have a wealth of resources from Cobalt to the Go-To and Navigator. So thank you for sharing. And I'm definitely going to reiterate for those listening, we're definitely going to have these in the show notes. So if you're listening on your player, you could click it as well. But Don, one thing that I'm looking at when I look at the results, that it revealed that, and you mentioned this, 60% of Canadians are actively seeking out supporting BIPOC-owned businesses. So how is RBC supporting diverse minority-owned businesses today?
Yeah, it's such a great and important question, Edwin. And at RBC, our actual corporate purpose that we defined, and it was a purpose developed and articulated by our employees themselves, is to help our clients thrive and communities prosper, which is really very inspiring. And if you think about it, it's not possible if there's people there in the community who are being denied those opportunities due to barriers or other aspects to access. So for us, thinking about how do we remove those barriers and expand the opportunities for all Canadians is pretty important. So we have a bunch of things that we do in that regard. One of them is recently we made a $100 million commitment to support the inclusion and growth of Black entrepreneurs, which is of course called the RBC Black Entrepreneur Program. And it's got 3 pillars. The first is improving access to capital for Black entrepreneurs. The second is providing access to a network of experts and mentors and business resources that are so crucial to help a business owner succeed. And then the third is bringing together members of the community to recognize and advance the growth of Black owned businesses. So I would kind of highlight 2 particular programs or projects within that program. The first is the Black Entrepreneur Business Program, which could be of interest to your listeners, and it provides financing solutions for Black entrepreneurs with loans up to $250,000, $250,000. A great boost to your business. And then there's a specific program for entrepreneurs, people trying to start up their program, the Black Entrepreneur Startup Program, which provides young Black entrepreneurs between the ages of 18 to 39 with startup loans of $5,000 to $60,000, together with a whole bunch of other resources like mentorship and coaching and resources to help them succeed. So there's always lots we can do. Those are some examples of what we're trying to do to really remove barriers and create more opportunities for Black business owners and entrepreneurs in Canada. Wow,
that's great. Thank you for sharing. I'm really proud of you, your team, and RBC, how you're leading in terms of providing those resources to entrepreneurs. And all entrepreneurs need the help, and definitely getting diverse and helping all the different communities as well is really huge. So I appreciate that. What other small business trends do you foresee this year?
Well, it's interesting. We, as I said, we conduct these surveys pretty regularly, about once a quarter. And, if you kind of look at themes that have really stood out in the past couple of surveys, a few I think are still particularly relevant right now. The first is that old saying, cash is king, or more importantly, maintaining a cushion of cash is crucially important. And, I think our business owners that proved so much resiliency during the pandemic, I'm sure have come to appreciate the importance of having just a bit of financial flexibility that comes with having a little bit of a rainy day fund or a cash reserve to just deal with the unexpected. And a good way to liberate cash and make sure you keep an eye on it is with a budget. And we have a cash flow planning tool that you can use. There's others out there, but really trying to think ahead and understand what that picture looks like from a cash point of view is crucially important for a small business and an entrepreneur. The second is, given all the changes that we're seeing in the labor market, how do small business owners continue to access the talent they need to get at that? And we know that is top of mind for business owners, attracting and retaining the talent they need to run their businesses. And so business owners themselves and consumers have pointed to a couple things that are really important for small businesses to provide. More than 40% said wellness programs, wellness and programs for employees to look after their well-being at work is important. Having remote and flexible work arrangements, we know, is very important to many employees. There's even a lot of thought. I think a third of small business owners are giving thought to, the opportunity for a 4-day work week and providing greater digital tools and enablement to their employees. So, lots of things for a small business owner to think about and that they can do to attract the talent that they need.
Yeah, no, I mean that's great, and it makes me think about when I grow teams and people that I collaborate, is just providing that that holistic lifestyle, work-life balance, and, you know, connected with the innovation and doing this. And obviously, as you mentioned, back to having the cash flow to ensure that the small businesses are comfortable as they grow and they scale and they continue to be competitive in the market. Don, I guess beyond banking, are there other services RBC offers to Canadian entrepreneurs to make owning and running a business easier?
Sure. Lots. A few come to mind that are, kind of interesting and I think deliver great value. One is something called RBC Insights Edge, which is a tool for retail and consumer services companies and others to really understand their clients, who they are, what's their purchase patterns, and this can really help you understand how to find new clients just like them or with different attributes. And help grow your sales. When it comes to e-commerce, we certainly can set up through our partnership with Moneris and Bookmark the opportunity for small businesses to get online and begin accepting payments and conducting business almost right away. And when it comes to going digital, we have a partnership with a company called SureWeb, which is very experienced. We're working with small and medium-sized companies to set up not just cloud-based solutions, but other kinds of IT solutions to help streamline their business and make sure that they're running as digitally enabled as they can. So, lots of great tools and resources out there. We've got a bunch, as you mentioned earlier, on the Small Business Navigator site. But I think it's always busy, I know, for a small business owner, making sure that you always protect some time to think about researching and understanding the market and how do you continue to build the capabilities of your business and your team. It pays dividends to do that. Always be thinking about how you innovate and embrace new ways of doing business.
Yeah, and that's a key point right there, Don, that you shared is for small business owners. We're always thinking about what we need to do, but as important as what we need to do is actually to take that time, like you said, do the research, understand what's the next step in the evolution of the business. So that's a big, important point, and thank you for sharing. Don, before we end, I'd love to really just get some final thoughts, observations, ideally actionable recommendations that you can share with the growing business leader, the entrepreneur who is listening.
Yeah, I guess a couple. I mean, the first is, running a small business is a challenge even at the best of times. And we've certainly seen that through the pandemic. It's also immensely rewarding for sure. And I think people have come to appreciate that. And for sure, we've seen our small business clients really develop tremendous resiliency and adaptability over the past couple of years, which is awesome to see and really important for the state of entrepreneurialism and our economy in Canada. Having said all that, I would always say, it can also be lonely at times and you never have to go it alone. So, it's important to not just make use of the tools and resources that are available out there, but also to talk to others. So find those trusted advisors out there, whether that's your lawyer or an accountant or some fellow business owners on the street. But talk to the trusted members of your network and help use them to help problem solve and gain their insights and advice. And I know that's always helpful. And of course, at RBC, we love working with business owners and entrepreneurs. So if you want someone to talk to, you can always come in and talk to us and give us a ring. We'd be more than delighted to be a part of that conversation too.
That's awesome, Don. To close, if you could just share where we could find more information about yourself, about some of the programs that we're talking about, or anything else you'd want to share to the listeners today.
Sure. Generally, rbc.com is a great place to start. And for those interested in these tools and resources I mentioned, RBC Small Business Navigator is a great place to start for those kind of startup tools and small business resources available. There's also a great Beyond Banking page that we have that can offer insights and tools and resources, and you can access some of the great partnerships that we have on our Beyond Banking page as well. So there's lots of tools and resources out there. We certainly try to do our part, and I'm pretty sure you'd find it pays dividends to pay a visit to our site.
And I guess to be clear, Don, these tools and resources is not only for RBC clients; it's for all entrepreneurs across Canada.
100%. Yeah, these are all publicly available, and we do them because we just want to build a stronger business community out there, sponsor entrepreneurialism, and it always starts with an idea, and from there, come and take advantage of the resources. Happy to talk to you and get you going from there.
Awesome, Don. Thank you for joining us on the Business Leadership Podcast today.
Edwin, thanks so much. It's been a real pleasure speaking with you.
That's it, biz leaders. Thank you for joining me on another episode of the Business Leadership Podcast. This was episode 161, a special episode with Vice President Don Ludlow, where we discussed the highlights from the recent RBC Small Business Poll. We shared the findings for 2022 and beyond. What really hit home within our discussion was when he started talking about being a small business, being an entrepreneur, that not only you have these challenges, but you always have to be thinking about how you innovate, how you got to embrace new ways of doing business in the ever-changing environment. If you're interested in learning more about the various tools that Don mentioned, from RBC Insight Edge, Cobalt, RBC Small Business Navigator, please go to thebusinessleadership.com/161. Again, that's thebusinessleadershippodcast.com/161. You can easily get to the links by hitting the episode in the podcast player you're in today. Thank you for spending the time. I appreciate you. I really love getting all the messages, the notes, the suggestions on who you want to have on the podcast, what you're curious about, what you're looking to learn to grow as a business leader. Please feel free to reach out directly through social media. I'm at Edwin100X, or reach out to me directly here at edwin@thebusinessleadership.com. And if you haven't done so yet, please be sure to subscribe, rate, and leave a comment on the podcast player that you are listening to right now. And until next time, have yourself a 100x day.
Thank you for listening to the Business Leadership Podcast at thebusinessleadership.com.